Okay, and today I have my close dear friend from Pune sitting all the way in the US at his home in the Bay Area, and singer, songwriter, uh, guitar player, musician. Uh, he's the owner of some six major patents, in various fields like augmented reality and music monetization and virtual reality and whatnot. And he's the guy who designs products at Facebook headquarters. So I'm really proud about this guy, and I've been wanting to interview this guy for a long time, and in this entire series, I figured that every time I speak to this man, there's always something that he keeps teaching me. He's one of my smartest friends I've had, and I had to share some of the stuff that this guy keeps telling me, and I had to share it with everyone who was watching this. So. Thanks, Amod, for coming on to this little chat show that I've started, and man, it's great to see you.
It's great to see you, man. It's been such a long time, and I feel like 20 years have passed since we used to hang out together. But our journeys have been so interesting, and I feel like every time we speak, I learn something about music still from you, and just the soul of it and everything. And yeah, it's been a ride, dude.
Yeah, it's fantastic. The first thing I got to say is that from Lakshmi Narayan Nagar, my neighbor next building, and used to work with NABARD, and from NABARD all the way to FB headquarters. And wait, hold on. I need to show you off on this. The Facebook corporate film has hardly some 7, 8 employees, and on their corporate film, and you're on it. I mean, wow! That when I saw that, I said, "Man, this guy Amod, my friend, who used to live next door, he's become a big boy, traveling first class across the world, and wow, it's such a great pleasure to know that. And how did this journey happen? It's crazy,
Well,
but
I
how did it
it's
happen?
actually just when I did it, people everybody was confused, as in I've done so many different things in life, and people see it as different things, but I don't see it that way. I just pursue whatever I feel passionate about. I just pursue it. So, I at the time actually, I remember the day I met you. I think we met in Vaishali. I was recording, I was about to record a demo, and I didn't have a good guitar. I had a Peter Pereira guitar from made in Thane. And you looked at it and you said, "Hey, why don't you use my Ibanez?" And I remember, and I played something, and the string broke. I remember, you remember that? I played something and in Vaishali just unplugged on your electric guitar and the string broke and I thought, oh my God, this guy's gonna get mad at me, and but he was so kind to me and he said, no, not a problem. I've got a new set of strings and everything. And so that was the way we met. And I look for, I mean, my life in India I always felt out of place in India. The internet had just kind of was just, people was just having access to the internet. And I
Right.
remember I was the first guy to actually start researching on the internet. I mean, with the old Alta Vista, the whole technology was a whole different thing at the time, right? And being in Pune and being sort of one of the first people, I believe, to get in India to get access to the internet, in fact, because I knew somebody at the university and VSNL, everything.
Okay.
So I was thinking way ahead of my times, and I just pursued my passion, and ultimately ended up where I am. And I don't see the trick is for most people, they have single-mindedly focused on one thing and then they pursue that thing. But because of my openness to be divergent in my choices of pursuit, ultimately after all these years, I was able to combine all those things in a very non-linear way to, leapfrog into a different area. So that's kind of how I would describe my journey. You know.
Fantastic. This is crazy. I mean, something that we use on an everyday basis. Facebook. We are on Facebook, and you're the guy who's responsible to creating that entire interface, or the way it looks, or whatever. I don't know exactly what you do, but I know that what you've done has touched billions of people.
It's
So
a
that's
big company. There's lots and lots of people. I'm one of the people that kind of does some design.
sure, but you're one of the very few employees who's on that corporate film, so that's what makes it special. So
Yeah.
superb. So, Mystic Frost. I mean, you remember Mystic Frost, the demo on which I think I even sang backing
You did
vocals or
sing, yeah,
something.
I remember.
Yeah,
And you went all the way. You just said you not only actually you not only lent me the guitar, but you also came to the studio to help me record it, and that was so helpful because I had no experience. I mean, it was probably the second or third time that I was going in the studio, and
yeah.
you were immediately you connected emotionally, and we didn't really know each other for too long at the time, right? And you
We were.
connected and you just went for it, and you cheered me from across the glass, and you said, yeah, keep this, do that. And it's like you were suddenly producing the demo, and it was so great. I was so lucky.
But with your music, the reason why I found it so interesting is because you were defying everything that I felt was the thing to do with when it comes to songwriting, with playing. I mean, your odd time signatures, your bhalta chords. I mean, you were creating chord progressions which are difficult to jam over or to sing over, but you were making melodies across those crazy, combinations of chords, and you were making it sound so smooth and so, and I think that was your mathematical brain. Even at that time, you must have been what, 21, 22, maybe
Yeah,
younger.
probably.
I don't even remember. But I always felt that Mystic Frost has, as a band, your music was very futuristic. I mean, and I admired that. I felt, man, this guy is, really pushing the limit. And that's what probably got me interested. And yeah, I wanted to be, in some way part of it. At least my guitar player on that album. So,
You're too kind. No, I think actually it's all about I don't have formal training in music, so I'm kind of self-taught. So for me, it was always actually I was passionately I got into guitar quite late actually. I started at 17 or something, which is super late to start off. But then I was so obsessed with it because I heard certain bands and I wanted to like play like them and play their songs. And every time I would sit to practice, I would actually end up composing something because my sort of passion to follow the melody in my mind or to express myself was far greater than my discipline to sit and practice playing lead or something like that.
yeah,
So I think that's what led me to this. And my mind is kind of asymmetrical. I don't think linearly at all. And so that is actually what drove me to write. It's not necessarily mathematical, but it's actually asymmetrical, and that's what was the driving force behind it.
so
Um,
does that help you in what you do today at Facebook in terms of product design and
Absolutely.
that kind?
Absolutely. So I remember I some long time ago I did a entrepreneurship program at Stanford University, and I had in my class some of the best people, so many talented people. And one time somebody asked me a question which I thought was interesting. How would somebody think to ask that question? But you're asking that question because this is
Yeah.
the is a so is that of all the things you do so many different things, they are seemingly not related to one another.
Yeah.
What's the one thing that helps you most? And I said, it's music, obviously. He said, what? How is that? So I said, okay, look, it's all related. It's music is so there's different levels of abstraction. You have data, then you index data, it becomes information. You add context to the information, it becomes knowledge. You apply that knowledge, you have wisdom. You apply emotional intelligence, and then you go to art, right? So for normal people, the consumption, the entire, I would say, the hierarchy of the levels of abstraction are go in this fashion that I just described. But for musicians and for artists, they skip all the lower stuff and they just go right to the heart of it at the top. So if Google's mission is to organize the world's information, it's kind of at a low level because information is not where today we're all walking around with the world's information in our pockets, right? But it's
Sure.
the realization of how everything is connected, and emotion and art is like a secret channel to go directly on top of it. So as musicians, especially as people who compose music, right, we find patterns, we find new patterns. So when you compose, you write a chord progression, you write a bass line that connects it, then you write a drum part that connects so everything is connected, right? And what we're doing is we're actually forming a rich multi-dimensional connection between those elements. to express something that somebody would take. I mean, if you were stuck down at the knowledge level, you would write long essays about stuff. But a musician would just say, "Open your heart, I'm coming home." You know, and, you know.
Yeah, and it says it all.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's what I mean. It's all related, I think. I never actually. I was from the beginning. Somehow I got this integral connection between art, and so I didn't see things as this is filmmaking, this is movie making, this is film script, this is a lyric, or even technology and art, and everything is together. So I see things holistically, and that's actually very helpful.
No, but you even did a film kind of a filmmaking kind of a
Yeah. Well,
course, and you had a company which you started a startup which actually judged script
did
writing
script
and
evaluation. Yeah, well, that was in LA when I lived in LA. But before that, actually, my filmmaking thing started in Pune. I
mm,
We used to live near the film institute, right?
yeah,
It's a funny story I'll tell you. This is every band's story in India, at least, right? Or in most of the many places also. We don't have so much room. And whenever
yeah,
you practice, you get kicked out of that place because the landlords go nuts. Like, oh, what is this? There's not enough soundproofing. It's not professional. So
yeah,
we didn't have a place to rehearse. And then suddenly I realized that I had some friends at the Film Institute, and I used to go there once in a while. And I
mm,
looked at everybody else, and I looked at myself. I said, you know what? These guys have long hair, torn jeans. I look like them. I could just pass off as one of the students. So I told my band, I told my friends, let's just take our equipment and walk into the film institute and see if they stop us. I'm sure there's lots of space and lots of rooms inside there. So we carried our guitars and nobody asked us for any sort of at the
I,
gate. We just walked in like we were there, and we went there. We found a room that was empty, and we just parked over there. We cleaned up the room and we just started playing over there. And we said, you know what, we'll play here until somebody kicks us out. 2 years later, I mean, we made
and
it
you
in
did this for what? How long? 2
2 years.
years?
2 years, dude.
You're
And so
kidding me.
it's amazing. And so I got wired. I became a permanent fixture at FTII. You've come there sometimes, I
I've
think.
come to that practice room. I thought you had some connection with FTI.
No, I just walked in and dude.
I can't believe this. I'm getting to know this now. I mean, I've come to that practice room
Yeah,
once. I remember.
yeah, I remember. And then Sanjay, Joseph, all these guys used to come. There became a small musical community there, and I became friends with all the film people, Vivek Philip, and these guys.
Yeah,
And then because I was there every day, like, we used to spend long time because we were planning for the album, so we were rehearsing and stuff. So we had long hours of periods of time that we would spend over there. And then 6 p.m., there's a requirement for all the students to go watch a film by the great masters. They have the auditorium inside. And I would
yeah.
just tag along and I would just watch that. So for a whole year, I saw the entire curriculum of a grain of Fellini and Tarkovsky. I watched all those movies and devoured all the filmmaking. Like, oh, this is amazing. And so my
Kidding me.
my education was like unfettered completely. I didn't have to. I mean, everybody, got themselves, struggled to get into the school and this and that. And I never had to really. I've even done background music for some. I'm there in every, sound recording exercise, dialogue exercise. I'm always the actor over there. It was funny
So
at the
you
time.
got a free education at
I got
FTI without ever
yeah.
enrolling.
Exactly. And then, so when I went to the US, I realized that it was a natural progression for me to think about screenwriting because I thought, okay, lyric writing is a very compact medium. It's like it's literally poetry. So
Sure.
you try to say a lot of things between the lines, and but the structure of story is the same, right? So I thought that the natural progression from songwriting would be screenwriting, and so I did a lot of programs and little programs in I lived in Minneapolis for some time, so I did some programs over there, and then when I moved to LA, I went to UCLA and went to film school literally.
Wow.
So the idea was that, like, the film is such a much deeper, richer medium, and you have all this time and the whole setup, and of course it makes production much more complex, but
Yeah.
still it's another level, and so I got into it. And so once I realized, after finishing the program, I realized, oh my goodness, the life of a screenwriter is a bad choice, career choice, because I met Terry Rossio. Terry Rossio is one of the biggest screenwriters ever in Hollywood. He's written Pirates of the Caribbean, Mask of Zorro, Shrek. He's written all the Shrek
Wow.
movies. So he's a
Wow.
big name. and I had a little conversation with him, and he said, he kind of laid it down for me, and he said, your best success looks like this, and that even wasn't something. He's successful because he's got production. He's friends with Jerry Bruckheimer, so he's got all these. He makes most of his money from production and not like as a screenwriter. Right? Screenwriter, of course, great, but he's got the power now. He's one of the unicorns that's got the power to do this production deals, and that's where the. But as a screenwriter, it looked really bad, and so I said, okay. If that's the case, then I'll actually solve the problem of all the screenwriters. And then I created a platform to evaluate screenplays, scripts. So that's kind of was my journey. And then that kind of brought me back to technology at that point.
But it's brilliant. I mean, I don't even know how you think like this, but I'm a basic user of Facebook, and I've just about started my Instagram account and stuff like that. But as we see, in fact, last night I was watching the movie The Circle with Tom Hanks,
Hmm.
and how technology is embracing us. We are embracing technology. It's almost actually engulfing us. The first thing I do is wake up in the morning and check my Facebook, or I check my Instagram, or get onto YouTube, and so technology, social media actually has become so important in our lives, and especially with musicians as well. There's so many videos that I watch, where people say, subscribe to my channel and do this and do that, and get into all of that. I've stayed away from it. I've just about started, maybe a little late in the day, but I've just started embracing social media. But today, how relevant is social media, and what is the future in terms of a musician's life? Because I think you might have some inputs with regards to that, in terms of how it's going to really affect the life of and the career of a musician today.
So I think it all depends on what your goal is. I see most artists, many artists, making the mistake of taking the expectations from a legacy world that no longer exists and then applying it to online. So because the traditional expectation, the traditional life of the way a musician would picture what's my most successful state, let's say, oh, I would have millions of followers, I'll fill up stadiums and I'll play in a big show and I'll be treated like a rock star and blah, blah, blah. So if you take those legacy things, that world does not exist as much today as it did before, right? For the most musicians. So
Sure.
of course there are successful musicians who tour and who play big shows, but
Mm.
getting to that point has become exceedingly difficult now, right? To play physical
True.
shows.
True.
But I think that there is a line where, so I see that now there's the online music following has been around for long enough that I can call it traditional. So
Yeah.
basically, traditionally, you start a YouTube channel and then you start to grow your following. Then you get Instagram, Facebook, and you try to grow your following with organically or through some advertising campaigns or whatever. And then you try to grow them. But why are you trying to grow them? I think that a musician must ask themselves, why is my goal? Is my goal to feel good and see the large number under my name saying, follow whatever million followers?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
really, or is my goal uh, to be able to get people into seeing my point of view, not necessarily only through music, but also through these kind of things. What we're doing right now is actually an extension of because it's not just a musical journey, it is a journey, and music is one of the vocabularies which we apply to include people in that journey, right? So I think
Sure.
that so basically, if you really think about what your goal is, you
Hmm.
may many of musicians today, I think, may realize that actually having that big number does nothing. It doesn't even pay me that much money, right? So that business model itself for a musician is questionable. Unless you have a billion hits on playbacks on YouTube, you're not going to
Yeah.
see a significant amount of money. Then there's
Fair.
endorsement. Then there's people saying stuff at the end of their video saying, "Hey, by the way, I like Fender amps and they're great and blah blah blah." And then they get some money, but it's not a viable business model, to be honest. So
Okay.
what's the future? I think the future so first let's talk about the really like in general, and then I can maybe talk about specifically what you can do, right? So
Sure.
generally speaking, the future I believe is in virtual concerts. See, think
Okay.
about it this way, okay? Today, if you want to play a big concert, what you need to do is, unless you're Agni or you're some band that's been around a long time and they already have a reputation and everything, you're a startup band, let's say.
Sure.
It is very hard to get a lot of people. So you're unnecessarily taking on a lot of the constraints of having a venue, then getting security, getting somebody to organize, invest money in the upfront, get sponsorship and
Sure.
all of this. And so there's the logistical production cost of that is monumental sometimes, right? Now, for those of
Absolutely.
us where they are part of the machine that's already going, that's a different thing. But for to get into that is very difficult. Now,
Sure.
these are externalities, these are external constraints that you put on your startup.
Correct.
Naturally, for any startup, removing the external constraints frees you completely. So imagine that instead of investing in that, you invest in creating a space for yourself where you can set
Okay.
up some, have a camera set up and everything, and you basically do your concerts online, right? So you do your
Okay.
concerts online, and there are basically ways in which you can engage your audiences and do live performances, and they may not give you that rush of being on a physical big stage to play.
Sure.
So it's not an either or choice. You can do that when possible, but when it's not
Sure.
possible, like in the pandemic days, especially for now, I mean,
Right.
it's super relevant
Absolutely
right now,
right.
right?
Yeah.
But even when there's no pandemic, and but not every band has the opportunity to play big shows all the time.
Sure.
So you can do that, but meanwhile, if you do serious shows, like you look at what Billy Joe Armstrong has been doing, since I don't know if you're following him, he's been
No.
playing songs from his apartment,
Okay.
and of course, he's a big star, so he has friends,
Yeah.
and so what he's doing is he's doing collaborations with other people. I mean, something like you're doing, but he's doing it musically, he's
Yeah.
just playing
Yeah.
together and stuff like. So he's got a
Sure.
setup and everything. So there are ways to engage people online now. How do you monetize? There are subscription models like Patreon, this type of sites where you can actually get subscribers. And if people think that there's value in engaging with you, I think musicians for the longest times have basically undersold themselves. Like,
Mhm.
hey, dude, can you play a song? Yeah, sure, let's jam. And that's when it starts, a free performance. And it basically, you never say to me, hey, man, I've got a couple hours. Can you do some design for me? I'm going to say, no, I don't have time. Sorry. I'm your friend, but it takes a lot of involvement. So,
Yeah.
so nothing is free. And I think the idea of free music has been so established, but to break away from it, you need to create new habits and you need to kind of condition the audience in a different way. I think it's possible. And what you're doing, for example,
Mhm.
is engaging people, calling your friends and kind of engaging people in a slightly different dimension and giving them a different,
Perspective.
view,
Perspective.
perspective,
Yeah.
is very engaging, is very helpful. So you could do that, and then the future, even further beyond that. Actually, I'll tell you, on VR, I don't know how much VR you guys use, but Oculus is becoming quite successful now.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
Oculus venues where you can do concerts, and those concerts are actually streamed on the platform. But other than that, there are also applications. There's a Japanese application, for example, which is the music is the music is provided by the artist, right? But
Okay.
then the performance is of entire virtual characters. Okay, so there'll be a virtual version of you. It's not a video image or anything. It's very lightweight because it's a vector, so it's easy to render. It's like there's no
Okay.
performance issues. And
Okay.
the audience is you. So the audience, if I'm kind of logged onto that platform and if I'm watching the concert, I see around me random robots dancing. They're robots, meaning they look like
Yeah.
humans, but they're
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
artificial humans,
Yeah.
synthetic virtual beings dancing, do all these things. And then so basically, if I take a break, let's say from work for, let's say, 20 minutes, right?
Okay.
I can just put on my VR thing and I can watch a concert, have fun, and then take it out and go. Now I can spend $5 on this thing.
Okay.
Instead of going down to the street to Starbucks and getting a coffee, I'll just pay the same money. But the thing is that there's no limit to how many people can watch this at the same, or they watch this asynchronously. They don't watch it at the same time, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this kind of a monetizing mechanism is a completely new mechanism, and it opens up a creative space. Like the last song that I saw, there was this Japanese pop singer singing some Japanese pop,
Yeah.
and then the next song was a ballad, and then suddenly I found myself, sitting at the beach, and then she comes and sits next to me and sings the ballad. So there's a lot of
Wow.
creative freedom that you have to be able to do much more than this, and it's far richer actually than making a music video was in the back in the day. So this is much more scalable, and it's a great experience. So I think that's where the future lies, really, of engaging people virtually and through VR or on the phone and other stuff also. So there's a lot you can do.
Fantastic. You had spoken to me about this, and this is something which I really wanted to share with everyone. Because this kind of thinking, you need to be in that industry to be able to know what's happening in terms of technology, and I'm sure there are quite a few things that you can't disclose as well. But even these kind of insights somehow reconfigures the entire concept of I need so many hits on my Instagram, and paid boost. Okay, there's one question which comes to my mind. When you said organic and inorganic,
Uh-huh.
organic growth and versus inorganic growth, and is this in terms of paid boosts and stuff like that? I've never used a paid boost, and how does this entire algorithm works? And if you're saying today that the number behind under that particular your page, that model is not going to work, but how is it relevant in today's age, or maybe in the next couple of years, to have 5 million views, and
So, so
and
the
does
so I mean the main question, I go back further and ask yourself, is are you going is it go if you have 5 million followers, are you going to be happier? What is it going to It's not going to give you a significantly more money through engagement if you have a watch like a video on any platform, Facebook, YouTube, or whatever.
uh,
It's not necessarily going to, in order to make a significant amount of money from that thing and make it your sole source of income, you need to get a billion views, not a few million. You're gonna get a huge number of things, and then you'll start
okay,
to see some decent money, right?
real money,
So
real,
I
okay.
think that as great as that distribution mechanism is to initially gather a following, I don't think it's on the long term. I don't think that's a viable business model for that's even if it's viable barely, it's not the best business model for a musician or for an artist. I think because the payout numbers aren't that great. The payout, what you can extract from the payout from a social media channel is much less than what you can get, I believe, through getting people to back you on Patreon or something like that. And also, one thing I wanted to say is that there's a spectrum. Like on one end of the spectrum, you have a business model that has a high volume and low margin business model, which is the
Right.
YouTube model, where you have millions of followers and then you get a tiny amount of money. And then on the other hand, you have a super high margin but low volume. So you play a concert, but you're only dealing with the promoter, or you get a music movie endorse. You get to be part of a movie soundtrack or something. So you make a large sum of
Correct.
money in doing one thing. But I think
Correct.
the unexplored space is the one in between, because I think while the attraction of having a billion followers is great on social media, the
Mhm.
monetization is not that much. And there are so few opportunities. But in between is a subscription space where you can
Okay.
get people to subscribe. Personally, if you create engaging enough content on a regular basis, I will be totally happy to pay you $5 a month, right, as a subscription. And you put them on a
Correct.
subscription plan. And if it's a small enough, you can even make it $1, something very small,
Yeah.
or maybe even so. A lot of times, so if you a lot of yoga studios, for example, in LA, what they do is they don't
Mhm.
charge you anything. They said it's a donation basis. So when you go there, it's all lovey-dovey. If you don't have money, that's fine. You don't have to pay. But you go there and the environment is so friendly and so loving that you cannot help but drop 20, 40 bucks in the jar. So sometimes what happens is that you by reducing the pressure to pay, you're removing the barrier for people to enter. But once they enter, once they find value, it's human nature to be able to wanting to give back. Nobody is a complete freeloader or through and
Sure,
through. You know.
sure.
So yeah.
Nice, but amazing. So basically now, YouTube, which is now used as the marker for the success of a song. Where okay, this particular song has 5 million views or 5 billion views or whatever that number is. So do you think that in the future that's going to be the indicator of what a really successful song is? Because earlier it used to be record sales.
Yeah.
Thriller sold,
Yeah.
12 million copies because they were physical sales. But with right now the situation is such that the only way to indicate how big a song is by YouTube numbers.
Yeah.
So do you think that in the future that's not going to be the case?
I think no, I think that's already there, and I think that will still remain because the thing is, there's no benefit to not putting it on YouTube. It's not like YouTube is charging you money to put it over there, right? So even if your main monetization channel is Patreon or VR something, you will still put your music on YouTube, and people will still watch it, right? So
Yeah,
I think that there is value. YouTube does act as a kind of a gauge to tell people how popular you are.
sure,
But it doesn't necessarily need to be that. If
sure.
you have a small enough, let's say you create some unique VR product, and if you only have 100 people watching you every time, but the subscription is like $5 per show, or you're charging tickets for the show, and they do that actually on VR. So you buy a ticket in advance, and there's a live. It's a timed thing that just like you would go to a concert, you go to a
Okay.
concert on the V and then you watch it. So it's like, so then if that happens, then they are increasing the value or perceived value of that show. Otherwise, if it's everywhere free all the time, then you
Yeah,
cannot, it's just the value goes down, right? So,
sure.
so if you have a small number of people, but you're getting $500 every show, and you can do this every week, or you can get thousands of dollars every week, right? Doing this. So while it is not necessary that you have a, YouTube presence, but it helps. It doesn't hurt at all. So that will still, I think, continue to be for some. And YouTube is a great product. I mean, they have done quite well in terms of I think in the last 2 or 3 years, they've done significantly improved their products. Um,
Right.
you know.
Fantastic. So, my final question to you is, today all the musicians are, extremely worried, including me, what's going to happen, uh, when does life return back to normal and stuff like that. But I think, in the face of any crisis, I think certain solutions show up. The way of life could probably change. I mean, the entire thing about this physical concerts and
Oh yeah.
going and gigging, all of that, that could probably change into and evolve into something else. So, is there any from guys like you who are sitting in positions of power in terms of reaching billions of people? Are you guys thinking in terms of figuring out something, especially for musicians across the globe, where companies like Facebook or Google or a YouTube will come up with ways in which a musician will be able to survive in case there is a change of lifestyle and
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I think there are pieces of the puzzle are there in the marketplace, and not necessarily from a single company. There are different companies with different models. I
Sure.
think that these models will all get stitched together. So
Hmm.
economically, so understand this. Today the world economy is collapsing in front of our eyes. It is going to change. Just because, I mean, I just heard a video interview of Bill Gates yesterday on online, and he said something like it seems like by next June, even June 2021, we will
Hmm.
still be feeling like we would still not be free to completely move around as we were before, because it's about getting the vaccines, and the entire planet needs to be vaccinated.
Yes.
It's going to be a long thing, and in that process, many companies will fall, many economies will collapse. It's a pandemic, but it's an economic catastrophe. It is a complete
Yeah.
disaster.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what's going to happen is that is going to force people, whether you like it or not, to create online business models because that is the only way to survive. And of course, recognizing this, the companies that had thus far been not completely focused on just providing for this, they will have an extra because the market will drive this. They don't even have to do this. The market,
No.
there will be such an astronomical demand for online services, better services. So,
No.
of course, big companies like Facebook can build anything, but it's what you want to prioritize. Or there's also risks in a normal world. If you the biggest concern is that if a lot of money changes hands, right, then that compliance comes with that. And on a global scale, if you're doing this, I mean, think about how much opposition Libra is facing, right? So it's not difficult from a technical perspective to execute something, but it's the compliance and the legal obstacles along the way are what actually keeps it from. But now, because of the pandemic and the extraordinary situation, there's no other way. So I think that those legal processes of allowing more transactions and having better systems, then you have this anti-money laundering and know your customer, all this regimes of all that whole entire ecosystem needs to be upgraded, and it will happen fast because there is a need. People cannot, they need to work online, and
Yeah.
I think that the market forces will push the companies. They will open up the regulation, and then this will open the flood. It's actually a good thing in the sense that evolution would have taken several years to happen. It's going to happen in 1 year now, you know.
Yeah.
So I think that every musician should absolutely be up to date on what's the latest stuff that's coming out,
Yeah.
and actively start right now creating an online business model. That is,
Fantastic.
yeah.
You know, we've had this conversation, but you made me feel a lot more, relaxed when you spoke to me a couple of days back, and I was thinking that this is something which needs to be shared. So that's why I decided I'm going to call you, and so I think the future is not really all that bleak. There's hope for musicians across the globe, not just in India but across the globe, that technology is going to help us survive. And of course, long live rock and roll.
I think that's also the other way around. It's also true. It's not that there's hope for musicians, but musicians are the hope for the world also.
Wow.
Because what happens is that technology and art are so intrinsically related. They are joined at the hip. It's not two different things. I mean, think of every great technological product as a work of art. I think art and technology both share the same goal of the pursuit of the truth. You know, and you see a Tesla car or you see an Apple product. These are
Mhm.
works of art. And the
Sure.
pursuit of the truth, it's science and art is a way of expressing a very efficient channel of vocabulary of expression, language of
Sure.
expression, and technology is the enabler to kind of express this better and to shine the light on the human condition.
Baba Amod. And thank you so much for taking time out from you have a very hectic schedule, I know that. So, but cheers, man, and it's great again to see you again face to face like this,
Thank you.
and
This was so much
big
fun.
yeah, and a big hug to you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay.
We'll speak soon. I'm gonna
Yes.
keep picking your brain for things from now on.
Absolutely. It's always
Thank,
a pleasure to talk to you. And I think that
yeah,
for some reasons the pandemic is driving people to call each other more often. So we'll do a better
yeah.
job of staying connected. So take care of yourself, man. And
You too, man.
much love to all the musicians out there.
Yeah. Cheers, buddy.
All right.
Cheers, cheers. Thank you so much.
Bye.